Anything you put your mind to, you accomplish. And you never back down cause you deserve it. The light shines in you cause you're the realest. And you walk by faith, you're optimistic. You inspire me, girl, you inspire me. You're so inspirational. Inspirational.
Welcome back to Your Inspirational. I'm your host, Gormikia Sturdivant, and today I have with me the author, the artist, and sometimes a little comedic side comes out. This is my friend, Elaine Nelson.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, having the opportunity to be here and have the opportunity to be interviewed and give you all some insight about myself as Gigi is beginning to open up some doors of my life for you all to understand in here.
Tell us how you got started with your book. You want to talk about that?
Yes, I'd be more than happy to. This is my book, First the Fire and Then the Lie. And so, Gigi, you know you were instrumental in helping me to even begin it. So, and I appreciate that so much. Yes, and so First the Fire and Then the Lie, that is now sold on Amazon and anywhere you want to buy books now.
Mm-hmm.
But it is about my early life starting at the age of around 5 years old.
Okay.
And telling a story about how I had a wonderful, beautiful life with my mom and my family until tragedy hit, and that changed everything at 5. With my mother being put in a situation that we were removed from the home.
Okay.
And so from there, the tragedy was so traumatic on her life, and then she began being diagnosed as schizophrenic.
Okay.
And so then we were brought back home and then removed from the home again, put in foster care.
Wow.
And so I experienced many foster homes, many. And a couple of times had the opportunity to stay with my grandmother.
Okay.
And during that, with my 5 other sisters, we were separated, except for myself and my one sister that was 1 year older than me. We were so close together that her, Rosie, and I, they thought it would be too detrimental to separate me being the youngest from my sister. And so they kept us together, but everyone else was put in separate foster homes. So all of that is being played out in the book, and it's not all tragedy and all negative. In every area of it, it's like there's a story where Gladys Knight wrote a song. She wrote a song. If anybody was to write my life story, you'd be there in every line of glory. Well, God is in every line of my book of glory.
Okay.
And so he gave me the gift and ability of writing, which I'd never written anything before in my life, and never even thought I would write the book. I thought it would be something like that story on the Titanic where the lady is laying in bed and somebody else writes the story.
Yeah.
And because I never was a writer, so that's where I thought it would turn out, but that's not the way God decided to turn out. He wanted me to write it. So I wrote it and got published by Page Publishing Company.
Okay.
And from being published, and just matter of fact, just yesterday I got an email saying the Audible has just came out. So the Audible has just been released. Yeah. So now you can listen to it as well as read it. And so, and it is going to the point that they have an interest also in we're working with the screenplay writer and turning it into a movie.
Wow, that's
It's
amazing.
It's a lot going on.
God's
It's a lot
blessing.
going on.
Different
Yes,
ways.
he's blessed me, and it's through my life, which he told me a long time ago that my sufferings were not in vain.
Yeah.
And they were testimonies. And I thought a long time ago I had enough. I didn't need any more testimonies.
Yeah.
I didn't need any more to share how awesome he is.
Yeah.
And how he can bring you out of things. I'm like, I'm good. So, but I through my own decision making, put myself in some situations that he had to bring me out from. So it's not that any other reason than my own choices that my testimonies they grew a little bit more. So, but as of the book, and telling its story, it is like something that was burning in my heart, that I would listen to people say, I lost my mom or dad, or something tragedy happened in my life, or I was in foster care or whatever, and then they'd say that, and then I would be like, that is horrible, but I went through that and a whole lot more. And through the power of the Lord, that gave me peace, joy, and a sound mind, and healed me from all those tragic scars and abuses, and taking that away. And then he says he give you peace that no man can take away.
That's right.
And when he gives it to you, he gives it to you. And so I think he gave me a triple dose of joy. Because I am one of the joyfulest people I know myself. And I can't help it. It is what it is.
And that's where the comedy comes from. Like, you can just make something, like, laughter out of the pain.
Yes, that's where the comedy comes from. Because though, regardless of what I've been through, I can see humor in it. I can see humor in it, because, and then that is a healing source in that humor. So turning pain into joy or peace or whatever. So yes, that is part of it. So that's where the humor. So I've always wanted to be a comedian also. That's where that comes from.
Okay.
Yes.
And so this book, you said this one is the first one.
This is the first out of 4.
Okay.
It's a 4-book series, and
and this one's like the experience that you had from ages what to?
From 5 to 13.
Okay.
And it may sound like, well, what could you have gone through from that age? That's where it's so amazing. That's what makes the book so amazing, because it's like, how could anyone go through these things at that young age and survive? And if they did survive, how are they not either on drugs or angry or bitter or committing crimes or doing some horrible thing with their lives? And then I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren, and they're loving, awesome, wonderful children that the Lord blessed me with. And I have the 2 awesome grandchildren. And so I wanted to make sure my children, where they say that your family could have a curse on you,
for
generational curse, and I want to make sure that did not carry into my children's lives. And so therefore, we have an awesome relationship and an awesome, I have an awesome testimony on how their lives have turned into, and they're nothing knowing anything about foster care and all these other things that I went through. They have a hard time reading the book because it's so distant from them and what they think their mother or grandmother could have possibly lived through.
That's crazy, because they can't see it. Like, because you don't show the effects of it, that's why.
Right, and I always say that I've been through the fire and came out without the scent of smoke on me. And when you don't even have a scent of smoke, it's like, how do you know there was a fire? So that's my analogy of my life.
And that's how God does it, Like, sometimes, like, people are expecting to see something. Sometimes we see people and they've been through stuff, but it's the difference, because you can tell when God is bringing people out of things, or when God has done something, He allows us to go through things, and He brings us out, and He's with us through it. But then there are those people who are constantly getting into stuff, and they look like what they've been through because they keep going back to and staying in what they're not supposed to be in.
Right.
And so that's the difference. But can you talk about your art? So she's an artist.
So yes, that's my painting. We just had an event, the monologues with
monologue event for New Awakening Recovery Services.
New Awakening Recovery Center, and I was just the painting this for this particular event
Yeah.
in particular. And so everything is symbolizing the healing and the depression and the joy and the freedom with the butterflies flying up, and so and the all races of people and the butterflies. So this is acrylic paint, and it is 24 by 36 size, and so this is one of the many paintings that I've done. I've been painting for like 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a long time, and so it's all God-given talent.
Yeah.
I started off painting with. When I went to an art exhibit. I was in college, and part of the class curriculum was to go to an art exhibit.
Okay.
And so I was trying to keep my grade average high because I wasn't making really good grades in English and math and things like that. So I needed these A's in this art, and I was always good in art. And so I went to the class, and and it was held at a nightclub. The art exhibit was held at a nightclub.
Okay.
And so the artists were sitting at the bar, sipping on their beverage, and then the art was along the walls. And when I went in, and this was held in East St. Louis, Illinois.
Okay.
I was going to State Community College in East St. Louis, Illinois.
Okay.
It's just a lot of deprived, not a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
We'll just say that. Okay. And this is over 40 years ago. So
Okay.
40 years ago.
Okay.
How old am I? Okay. Maybe 30 years ago.
So funny.
So went to it, and then it was like a person who could read, who understands music by ear. And so when I saw the paintings, it's like they were literally talking to me. I could understand the paint strokes, I could understand the color, I could understand the paint. It was just really a kind of weird experience.
Yeah.
So I walked up to the artist and asked the artist, what kind of paint did you use? How did you paint this picture? You know, all these different questions.
Yeah.
And I said, I believe I can paint it. I feel like I can paint it. And they were offended that, because they were professors and people who had been to school for years, and they had, and this is my first art exhibit ever seeing any art. Now, I'm just in a drawing class. I'm not even in a painting class.
Okay.
So I'm just in a drawing class for the first time in my life, and I'm saying, I think I can paint it. I'm pretty sure I could. And they're like, oh, you need to stop talking to me. Yeah, so they were snobbish and told me to get away from them.
Wow.
And so I was offended, and I was like, but I had real serious
excited.
excited. And they were like, I've been painting for so many years, and I'm a professor, and this and this and this, and you would never be able to paint this without all these, so go away. So I went home, and I took I saw a boarded up building, and the wood was hanging off the side, and I got some little young kids to get that piece of wood for me, and took it home and cleaned it off, and then I went to one of the hardware stores, like Ace hardware stores, and got some little cans of house paint, latex house paint, and some little brushes where you brush the edge of your walls, the little small brushes that you touch up with. And they didn't have a lot of colors. This is 40 years ago or longer, and so at that hardware store, so I got pink, yellow, brown, and black, and orange, I think. And so I took them home, and then that's when I started painting. I didn't have any idea what to paint, but I was trying to think about those men, the artists' paintings and all the different styles, and I just thought, well, I just started with 3 circles, and then from 3 circles end up with 3 women's faces. And so from 3 women's faces, using those few colors I had, they had orange hair, orange afros, yellow afros, and then I, put the eyes and nose and everything in there in them 3 faces. They all had different attitudes and personalities, and when I was finished, I thought, this is not bad for someone who knew not how to do it, and I somehow blended the paint enough that give them features.
Yeah.
And so I thought from there on, I said, what if I had some real canvas and I had some real paint, artist paint, then what could I do? So what happened from there was I went and I got some real canvas from an art store and art paints and real paint brushes. And then it was back in there, those days that he used to have in the Ebony magazine, you'd open it up and the centerfold would be Black Kings of Africa. They did the big thing on that every month. And I looked at one of those and I said, I'm gonna do this picture of these Black Kings of Africa and all the tribe, and I'm gonna do it on a huge 2x4 painting, canvas, on a canvas. And nobody can say that, that I didn't do it because it's so huge and everything. So I did it, came out really good. It took me probably about 4 months. Worked on it at home. It took me probably about 3 or 4 months. I took it back to school and showed my teacher, and my teacher was so floored. He refused to believe I did it, and he said I plagiarized someone else's artwork. He said to me, you want to be an artist so bad that you would plagiarize somebody else's artwork and put your name on somebody else's artwork, and you know good and well you did not paint that picture, and told me I was a disgrace and I was shameful, and to take that painting and take it back home and get out of his sight and get out of his class. So after going home and crying for a minute, then I realized I must be really good. If he cannot believe it at all, in the little bit he could not believe it, then I must be really good. And so that did do nothing but light the fire under me even more. And so that's how I started painting.
Okay.
And from there, I ended up painting some other pictures, and people in the neighborhood started seeing my pictures, and they were asking me to paint pictures for them. And I began to sell some here and there to some of the neighbors and people. And then I had accumulated a few paintings, and that particular painting. And then there was a student in our classroom that our teacher, that same teacher, was going to give an art, that was giving an art show, giving him the platform to hang his art in the library, at the library. And he was a caricature artist, little caricatures.
Okay.
And they were like 8x12s or something like that, but they were all caricatures.
Okay.
And the young man was a big fan of my artwork because he said he wished he could paint like I did, and he could only do caricatures. He said, but because he heard the teacher tell me to take my artwork home, and this young man had seen some of my other artwork. He said, what I'm going to accept that platform to hang my art. He said, but what we're going to do, Elaine, is that day, instead of my art hanging on the wall, we're going to put your work on the art wall, and we're going to sit my artwork on the floor in front of it. And I agreed to go along with that, and sure enough, when it opened up, there was all my artwork, and it drew such a stir with the teachers, the faculty, that they called the newspaper and said, we need you to come down here and write a story or say something about this artwork. And then all the teachers bought all the artwork, the faculty bought every piece of artwork I had on the wall, and they put a little story in the paper about me.
And so what the instructor say?
Instructor said, here's what he said. He said, I had gave a statement in a newspaper, and he wanted to know how come I did not mention his name. And I said, because my grandmother taught me, if you don't have anything good to say about a person, don't say nothing at all. So he was like, wow. And so it was a little while after that, probably after a couple of other incidents, that he was still jealous of my art. Even I took a crafts class, and he wanted to keep my belt and different things. We won't go into it. But at the end of it all, he offered me a scholarship.
Oh, that's good.
So that's the bottom line.
So he learned the errors of his ways.
Yes, but I did not take the scholarship.
Oh, okay.
Because I was afraid that if I ran into another teacher like him, I would never paint again.
Wow.
Yeah. because there's other stories that go along with 3 other things that happened, and it would vary because I would not give him this belt when I took the. He told me he would give me an F.
Okay.
If I don't give him, he wouldn't hang my belt. But I had beat my husband's face into the belt.
Okay.
And everybody else just used the tools that they had. They put little butterflies, little, just whatever the tool had.
Yeah.
Well, I had stayed up all night and I carved into and had little glasses, little eyeglasses on my husband, his little afro.
Yeah.
And he was just astonished on how I could have done that. And so he was like, I cannot let this belt go. I'm going to keep this belt. And you got an A+, but I'm keeping this belt. And I was like, no, I can't. This is my belt.
Yeah.
You know, and I know. And so he gave me an F, and then I had to go to the dean and get it corrected.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought, I don't think I'm doing well in school with you. So, not to discourage anyone else from going. My life story is different from other people's life stories. So that's just what happened.
Okay.
But in the end, we're all good.
Yeah. So did you do your own artwork for your book? Or
I did.
Okay.
Yes, this is my cover art. And the cover of it is Denver and the mountains in the back. And it's an old Denver because the new Denver has a building in it. They call it the cash register. But I didn't put that in there because the setting of this book is set back earlier before that was built, and I didn't think that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
So, and it's a rather abstract. Can I hold it up? It's a rather abstract looking type of art. It's not a lot of art that I do this way, that I painted this way, but I did this in particular because I was young and I wanted it to be like from a youthful, yes. And so there's the fire, that's the abstract fire for the fire. And then there's like water, and that's kind of like God, my grandmother, the good foster parents that were keeping me. And then that's my walkway. And it's like I was walking through this curvy life and around, and that water there, that was God protection, keeping the fire from me. And then the lie is, as these little footprints get closer and closer to this particular part where there's 2 ladies standing there, that's a lie right there. And it's because that's where the big lie was told. It was devastating. And that's all I got to say about that. I don't want to tell you anything to give away the book.
Yeah. So how can people reach you to do any speaking engagements, or for you to do some monologues, or even do artwork, or if they want to purchase artwork?
Yes, they can reach me on my website, which is Elaine Nelson Art. Elaine, ELAINE, NELSONART.com.
Okay.
They can reach me on my website. They can reach me on my email, Elaine Nelson Art at yahoo.com.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining me and just sitting down and talk for a while. She will be back because we have another thing that we're gonna do, but right now we're just going to close out because she has to get back on the road. She stopped by for a little while, so thank you for coming to just enjoying New Awakening Recovery Services event today, and then also stopping by just to do your inspirational. So
thank you so much for having me.
my pleasure. See y'all next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Your Inspirational. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, all right? See you next time.